As you know by now, we got a 50 basis point rate cut on Wednesday, and that was pretty aggressive cut. It's not unprecedented. It's happened before in history. But what does this mean for Bitcoin going forward? Welcome to Crypto Simulation Theory. I'm the Gaussian Snake. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment on my video if you like the content, and join my free Telegram group, the Snake Pit, afterwards. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the CME group is forecasting for the coming FOMC meeting on November 7th, which will be another pivotal FOMC. It looks like they're going for about a 60% chance of a 25 basis point rate cut, maybe a 40% chance of a 50 basis point rate cut. If we look at the um, aggregated probabilities, we can see that these rate cuts are looking pretty aggressive and actually taking us all the way into even potentially 2026. And I know that that's based off of what Jerome Powell was talking about. But look at, I mean, the market is expecting us to make it down near 275 to 300 basis points by about a year from now. So that is interesting data to see things so aggressive. Um, my outlook for Bitcoin was that Bitcoin would initially take this news, maybe fairly well, but then have a dump into rate cuts, somewhere around there, right? Like we would have a dump in some region of rate cuts, and that is not what has happened. Instead, as you can see on the weekly, Bitcoin has actually been moving higher, and it in fact broke a downtrend trend line. If I were to draw that trend line, you would see that Bitcoin has in fact broken this downtrend trend line, depending on how you want to draw it, if you want to connect wicks or whatever. Yeah, Bitcoin is pretty much blasted through this, which is a first sign of strength. Now, granted, we do not have the weekly close just yet to know for sure what's in store for us. What would be really interesting to see is if we invalidate this bearish cross. I mean, and there is a historical precedent for that, to get a bearish cross and a bullish cross right after. It's happened about exactly a year ago. So is history repeating itself? Are we about to break out of this broadening falling wedge and rocket to the upside? I think so, but I'm still cautiously bullish, right? There are some things that do concern me, that make me, wonder, are we there yet, right? So if you look at the ADX and DI, which has been an indicator I've been spending a lot of time looking at on various assets, you can see that the average directional index and again, this is on the weekly time frame, has dropped to fairly low levels around 13. So that's indicating a moderate trend strength. So we're generally not expecting any explosive moves while the trend strength is in a decline and the slope is negative here. It's just going down. So we would anticipate the trend to slow down even more in the coming weeks. Okay. I mean, it doesn't have to, it could just curl right back up as well, but this is just based on what I'm seeing here. I am seeing a bullish convergence of the green directional index towards the red directional index. What we'd like to see if we want to, avoid some kind of sudden dump before the pump is for a bullish cross. That's what we want to see. We want to see the green get above the red and get that true bullish divergence. And then we want to see the white ADX start to curl up. And I think that is fairly likely to happen, that we're going to see something like that. Of course, this is just one indicator. We need to look at a lot of other things. And one of the things that I want to mention to you that I know I've said before on this channel, and repeating this in every video about Bitcoin, is that 5 out of 5 times in Bitcoin's history, when Bitcoin has put in a death cross, a weekly death cross of the 50 and 100 HMA, there's always been a pump into that death cross. Now, I don't really feel like we've seen that pump yet, but there always has been a pump and then a dump. It's been a pump and dump situation. It's happened 5 out of 5 times. I have videos on this. You can go watch them. I am seeing a potential inflection of the 50-day HMA, so maybe it's going to curl back around into a golden cross. That actually would be my base case for a bullish quarter 4, which is still what I've never wavered on saying that I believe quarter 4 is going to be very bullish. So I'm still saying, something else I noticed right before I made this video that I wanted to point out to you. As you know, I do have a background in mathematics, and so I do tend to notice things that are mathematical in nature. So what I noticed, let me see if I get a drawing tool out to express this, is I saw that this like broadening falling wedge almost has like a odd symmetry. If you know in math, an odd symmetry means if you have a point like XY on your graph, and let's just pretend that right here was your origin, this point here would be negative X comma negative Y. So it's a reflection across the origin, basically. I just thought that was kind of interesting. There appeared to be some kind of symmetry going on here. So I almost wonder, and it's very dangerous to make these, mathematical statements, but what goes up must come down, what goes down must come up. I almost wonder if we're sort of foreshadowing a move kind of like this, but in reverse, right? Instead of going down, going up to sort of be a mirror image. I think that's reasonable. And, I have my green zone and my red zone originally here. I must have accidentally just turned them off right now. But my red zone for a potential dump is, well, I'll just put it in again so we can. I just noticed something. I don't know if you can see behind this green candle bar, we actually did form a bullish cross on the Gunnar EMA, so we may have an invalidation here. Again, this weekly close coming up is the most critical weekly close I think of the year for Bitcoin. So if we can maintain this bullish structure on the weekly time frame, then I think we're golden and we can actually avoid this dump that I've been forecasting. If you've been following me, and we'll just see this as a bounce off the Gaussian channel and nothing more than that, and we can curl right back up. So I had this red zone drawn from 42,000 to 51,000 as a potential landing spot for a dump post rate cuts. That did not happen. And I am not ruling it out just yet. I want to see how we close the week. So we'll come back to this in a video, after the weekly close and kind of explore and maybe decipher what is the most likely outcome. One thing we have to consider is just how well the stock market's been doing. So you can't ignore that. And yeah, my green zone target is kind of where I think Bitcoin may land in this next pump. And I'm a little bit uncertain about like if we're going to just rocket right through it, but I think not. I think we're going to hit some resistance around $100,000. It just seems like a sensible place to kind of have some issues. Not saying we won't go through 100,000. I think we will. I think we'll go much higher than that. But I think a good place for Bitcoin to settle down in quarter 4 is somewhere in this green zone between 90 and 130K. If it got up to those levels, it would not overheat the market. If you look at the Bitcoin risk levels right now, I mean, you can see that Bitcoin risk that we're currently at is around 40. We're around 40 risk, so that's very low risk. Um, and I easily think we can make it up to $100,000, which is 70 risk. So 90 to 100,000, I think we could see some pulling back around there. We could even go to 80 risk, which is 123. If we get to 130, we're starting to get pretty hot at that point. Look at where we are. We're up in this region, which is not too far off from where I suspect a cycle ending peak to occur. So we do have to watch out for a left translated cycle. We do have to watch out for it. It is a possibility, especially with potential recession coming up at some point next year, or maybe it doesn't happen until 2026. But we are right now in safe territory. We have plenty of room to go up without overheating. Like I said, I think even getting to this 130,000 level, while it is kind of high, and if Bitcoin starts to then trend down in 2025, I think that would actually be quite good and allow for maybe a third and final leg up to happen later in the year. So, all of this is just meaningless hypotheses. As you know, predictions are, you know, a dime a dozen. And one of my predictions that I made, which is that we'd have a dump before this pump, may not actually happen. So, a bullish cross on the Gunnar EMA, and that's something to definitely pay attention to. So, I want to flip on over to the 2-week time frame for a minute to look at an indicator that I spend a lot of time looking at, which is the reverse Chandy momentum. If you've been following me on my channel for any length of time, you know that I love this indicator, the reverse Chandy momentum oscillator. And it was allowing me to call a top on Bitcoin when we were getting into this upper region, which we rarely get to. Like, you know, you watch my older videos to kind of see, but you can, I can review it with you now. It's just super rare that we actually make it that high. And once we make it that high, generally the trend reverses to down. So I do feel we are in sort of this macro downtrend that's begun with this, red momentum line. But what I think is likely to happen is, we're going to probably challenge this line and maybe even get above it for a little while. So the question is, have we started that challenge right now? Are we about to, head up and maybe get a slight pullback and have some kind of inverse head and shoulders? Well, I simply don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But what I can tell you is that the level that we bounced at, and I've said this before in other videos, and I'm, going to say it again, is not a level we get to very often. And in fact, you have to go back to 2019 to see a level anything like this. Very similar kind of dump in 2019, just less exaggerated compared to what we have now. But what ended up happening is we came back up to challenge the red line in quarter 1 and then just fell down again. And honestly, something like that could play out again, right? But it won't play out exactly the same way. If it does, we could get a pretty substantial pump. I mean, even potentially turning this green for a little while. Like if you look, we did flip green in 2021, and certainly, when we did this double bottom thing here and started trending back up, we flipped green. And this is a very weak bull run compared to even this recovery here. This recovery is pretty much as strong as this last bull run. If you look at past momentum oscillators from the distant past, you can see there was a lot more, upside volatility in this. So, um, yeah, we were at pretty historically low levels, so the probability of a bounce from here was pretty good. But note that we could also come down one last time. It is possible, and this is why I'm watching the weekly close, because I truly have no idea what's going to happen here. If you look at the 2-week candle, we actually haven't quite taken out the previous 2-week dumpage candle. In fact, we're facing resistance there. So I am paying attention to that on the 2-week. While the weekly looks very nice, the 2-week is showing me a little bit of concern here that we could still move down, and that would be a very painful move next week for everybody who thinks the market has recovered. What if it hasn't? And we get that dump that I've been talking about to the 45,000, sorry, 42,000 to $51,000 range. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind that we're not quite out of the woods yet. It may seem like we are. Sure feels good to be going up, but it's a little uncertain if we are. So I said cautiously optimistic that dump could still come. Let's wait to see what the weekly close. Something that I just simply cannot ignore is how strong gold is. Gold is doing very, very well right now. This is a 2-week of gold. Look at the reverse chandy of gold. It's just beautifully coming up. It is getting, it is starting to get into some hot territory, but it has a lot more room it can run before even being a concern. And, when was the last time gold rallied like this? Well, you have to go back to 2019 to see that kind of rally. And then before that, I mean, it had been a while, right? Like here's a run by gold that kind of coincided with Bitcoin's first bull market, and actually part of Bitcoin's bear market as well. So, we haven't really seen gold run hard quite like it is now, and since 2019, and it actually looks more bullish to me than it even did then. This is something to pay attention to. This can be a leading indicator of a recession. And again, I'm not saying the recession is going to come like tomorrow or even in quarter 4 or even quarter 1. It just generally is a leading indicator of a recession, and we know that in 2019, you know the gold definitely led the recession. The recession came in 2020. So I am very cautiously looking towards 2025 as being a potential area where we could see a recession. See, this is what I'm kind of talking about. You got inverse head and shoulders, man, and gold just took off like after that on the price momentum oscillator. Look at how the bull market support band is widening. This is as bullish as it gets. There's only one other metric in crypto right now that I feel is as bullish as gold, and you might be a little bit surprised. It's not an asset, but it's not as bullish as gold. But Bitcoin dominance, right? Bitcoin dominance right now is coming into my green zone. And it's getting close to 59%. Look at how it's respecting the upper boundary of its bull market support band, although the bull market support band is starting to shrink on the 2-week. Okay. It's just fairly steady. It's a fairly steady climb. And what I noticed on the daily time frame recently with Bitcoin dominance, I actually noticed that it was going parabolic. And today it broke that parabolic trend. But, Bitcoin dominance had quite a nice run. Look at that run on the daily time frame. Okay, and it's coming down to test the Gunnar EMA band, which really widened. So it almost looks like, a mini top here. And I think we're going to see some relief from altcoins for a little while. But I don't think this is the last we've seen of Bitcoin dominance, right? So regardless of what Bitcoin does, whether it goes down or it goes up, I still think, Bitcoin dominance is going to go up. The Gaussian channel on the daily is concave down, so I would anticipate we see some weakness from dominance temporarily. But again, if you go to the 2-week Gaussian channel, it looks really good. So I think dominance has a little bit of life left in it. I think it can get to up to a maximum of about 63% in quarter four. And I don't think dominance is going to roll over in a more material way until it puts in some kind of blow off top. I think that's what it's heading for. And see, this is where I kind of thought, well, maybe next week we get that dump to 42 to 51K. I mean, no one would see it coming after the kind of pump that we just had. So I am cautiously, thinking something like that could happen. So the way you navigate a situation like this, if you buy into my thesis that Bitcoin dominance is very bullish right now, heading into quarter four in a short-term bullish sense. Okay, long term, I don't think so. Long term, I think this thing is gonna kick the bucket pretty soon, just like it did in 2020. But what would happen if Bitcoin dumped right now really hardcore to 42 to 51K? And it would shock everybody. And I feel like a lot of people would just pour tons of money into Bitcoin. And it's strange because we are entering into a more risk on time in the market, but it takes a little bit of time for that to happen. I mean, Bitcoin is still bottoming most likely, and it's still Bitcoin season. So I mean, I think a blow off top and then some instability with dominance, sending it down towards the end of quarter four makes the most sense. I kind of think of this as a Bitcoin year and not as an altcoin year. I want to show you the altcoin Bitcoin season index so you can kind of, grasp a little bit more. Now, altcoins have had some pretty impressive movement off of the rate cut news. We cannot ignore that. That altcoins have been in a temporary uptrend, at least, hypothetically, from early September to now. Okay. And we just had a giant spike up to an altcoin season index of 44. I think we are definitely in some kind of bottoming process. We have not taken out 46. Now that remains to be seen. If we do take out 46, I'm gonna definitely pay attention to that. You can almost see an inverse head and shoulders forming here. Altcoin season can sneak up on us at any time. So just because I said Bitcoin season doesn't have to go to, all right, just because I said Bitcoin dominance is most likely to go to 60 to 63%, doesn't mean it's going to happen now. And doesn't mean it's going to happen at all. It's just what I think. But if we go look at this on like an annual chart, right? So I mean, look at we're kind of spiking up pretty rapidly here, but let's go to like a more annual chart and see kind of what we're being told there. Well, I think it's fairly clear from looking at this chart that we put in a double bottom in and the trend is reversed. We are heading towards an altcoin year. It's not going to go straight up though. Okay. So with altcoin year, you're going to have your ups and downs, but we have been putting in macro higher highs and higher lows, and we just put in a higher low right here. So maybe as we head towards 2025, we start to see some higher levels. I mean, let's look at what's happened in the past when we've headed into altcoin years. Let's go back to like 2019, 2020. Now, I mean, granted, the market was more volatile back then, so you could just make these super parabolic moves. But if you were to stretch this out, like I think this on a stretched out scale is more likely to be kind of how our altcoin year is going to probably emerge, right? You can see that as the market gets more capitalized, these moves happen more slowly. But it does look to me like we have a change in trend. And that change in trend, it's funny because the double bottom here, August 23, October 23, that's just such a clear double bottom to me. And yeah, we're heading back up. So, but we are going to probably come down again at least one more time. And then, maybe at that point we start to make the parabolic move up into this region. And I think that's likely to happen towards the end of quarter four, could even start in the middle of quarter four and to last throughout probably the first half of 2025. I think that's a very likely outcome after spending all this time here in accumulation. So I think as far as altcoins are concerned, we're in kind of a late accumulation stage. and um, it's only a matter of time before Bitcoin dominance kind of, kicks the bucket, right? So that's kind of what I think. Like Bitcoin dominance on a much larger scale does not look super bullish. Like if you go to the 1 week, for instance, you can see the cracks starting to form that you might not see on the 2 week. Like I said, you've got the Gaussian channel going concave down and widening, and this is textbook, getting near the end of bull market behavior. Doesn't mean you can't have a blow off top, and that's why I'm going to be very watchful of what happens next week. Next week could mark the local top of Bitcoin dominance. It could happen as soon as next week. If we get a weekly close, let's say above the trend line that I was talking about earlier for Bitcoin, um, and then let's say or let's say we don't get a weekly close above the trend line, sorry, and then Bitcoin dumps, I think we could see a pretty big spike here. Or if Bitcoin starts to just take off and go parabolic, I still think we could see a spike here. So either way, I think Bitcoin dominance is very close to entering into the beginning stages of a bear market. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing. That's what will lead to our Ethereum and altcoin year next year, and we could see the beginning stages of it even in quarter 4. I'm watching the bull bear power trend very closely as well. As you can see, the bulls have been losing control. This week we got a spike up, and we actually put in a higher high on this moving average line, but we still haven't taken out this high from June and July. We'd like to see, a change in trend occur. We want to be able to do that, right? So we haven't proven that this is a bullish change in trend completely just yet. And if I go look at the Y cloud buy and sell momentum indicator, let's see what we see on the weekly time frame there. We're just not seeing that convincing buy volume that I like to see. So that's one of the other things that keeps me sort of like cautiously bullish for at least the end of quarter 3 and maybe the very beginning of quarter 4 is just, yes, we are seeing some buy volume. The bulls are winning, but look at how low these bars are. This is generally not what you want to see heading into a more bullish scenario. You want to start to see your volume really pick up, and instead we're seeing it kind of go down. So this is the volume momentum is down. Yes, buyers are in control, but will they remain in control through the end of the month? I think there could be a cruel surprise in store for us, right? And I've been in this market long enough to know to not get comfortable, right? I just won't get comfortable. So I need to see some kind of big buying event occur, and I'm not saying it can't materialize, but look at what happened in like 2020. We had the buyers in control, and then we had a huge flush out. When you get this like weak this weak buy volume, and then finally we started to see a normalization where buyers were really in control, and we had this steady uptrend. What if we see something like that play out, but on a more fast time frame, like, or it could even be a slower time frame? Like, I don't know, right? None of us know. But what I do know is this trend is going down. So where's this explosive volume going to come from? Are people just going to wake up one day and say, "Oh, 50 basis point rate cut, I want to just ape all my money"? Well, they would have already done that. So this is the psychology, the market psychology behind me thinking a dump is still coming. Okay. And just looking through the indicators tonight makes me even more convicted of that. And it's really hard to say that when Bitcoin is heading to 64K as I'm making this video. It makes me look like a fool. We'll see how this video ages. We're going to revisit this after the weekly close and into next week, and we'll kind of see if Bitcoin does take a little bit of a dump, or if it doesn't. Looking at the Dixie, it's right here, so might as well just look at it. There's no real clear direction on the Dixie right now. It's as neutral as it gets, just chopping around. So what if the Dixie decides to make another run for it and go up, right? The one thing that I will say is keeping me fairly bullish is how horrible stablecoin dominance looks right now. Okay, and you can think of stablecoin dominance as kind of being the inverse of what's going on with Bitcoin dominance. Sorry, with Bitcoin's price. So stablecoin dominance has been in this rising rising wedge pattern. I mean, it almost looks like a bear flag that's playing out here, but it did take out its breakdown point, which is kind of a bullish thing, only to break down yet again. So it kind of faked out above the median line of the Gaussian channel, and it's really hard to tell what happens next here. What I can tell you is this week again, and the week hasn't closed. Um, we did take out the upper portion of our bull market support band, and we are successfully testing the lower portion. So that tells me if we can hold this lower portion, we might be able to work our way back up again, and that would correspond to another dump. And then just maybe it drops off from there into our next leg up. Because this looks like we are about halfway through a bear market for stablecoin dominance. If you zoom out, that's just what it looks like. So I guess that what I'm saying is I don't really care what happens next week. Like, okay, if the market dumps, it's just going to bring in that buy volume that we need. And if you have cash on the side, you can use that cash to take advantage of opportunities and buy some altcoins. Or if you want, buy some Bitcoin or Ethereum, whatever. Um, if Tether Dominance just starts to just roll over right now and we're in a bear market with Tether Dominance for next week, then Bitcoin's just going to go up. And maybe it makes a slow and steady grind up. And, or who knows, maybe something happens where a bunch of money enters the market. But generally speaking, from what I have seen time and time again, is that when everybody thinks things are going up, they'll go down for a little while. And I think one last shakeout would really freak the market out. And anybody who's waiting on the sidelines looking to grab Bitcoin between 42 and 51,000, and my Goldilocks zone is 42 to 46,000. That was actually based off of logarithmic regression analysis that I did in a previous video. So again, check out my past videos on Bitcoin. Even though they're a little bit, a little bit older and maybe slightly outdated at this point, outdated is basically, a video that's like 3 days old. You'll find a lot of really interesting theories in there. So I guess for me, it doesn't really matter what Bitcoin does in the next week or two. Maybe it'll open up some deals that I could take advantage of. But if Bitcoin just keeps grinding up, then that's great too, because I already have a crypto position. I have several crypto positions. So I'm good either way. And I really don't care what happens because I still believe that quarter four, and I can't say it's going to happen right away. It could take a little while. It could happen in mid-October. It could happen in November. I don't know. But sometime in quarter four, by the middle of quarter four at the latest, I think we're going to get a really epic pump out of Bitcoin. Okay. So I don't know if we're there quite yet, but let's just kind of hang on cautiously as we approach this weekly close, and we'll just see what happens and we'll go from there. So thank you again for joining me for Crypto Simulation Theory. I am the Gaussian Snake, and I have a Telegram group, the Snake Pit, which I'd encourage you to join if you want daily updates, daily market updates, analyses. We actually had somebody who has been promoted to an admin there who's now going to be doing more like broader market analyses, and he comes from a background from Trueflation and Chainlink, and he's got a really solid knowledge of macroeconomics, and that's just a really great guy to have on our team. So happy that he joined our admin team, and he's going to be contributing regularly to the macro side of things. Be sure to comment below. What do you think? Do you still think Bitcoin could have one last shakeout before we get that like massive bull run? Or do you think it's already started? We avoided it. I don't know. Something just doesn't feel right to me. I feel like a shakeout is coming right at the end of the month, just when everybody's getting comfortable. That's what I feel. Let me know what you think in the comments, or let me know on Telegram, whatever you're most comfortable with. All right, well, that's all for tonight. Nothing in this video should be taken as financial advice. Always do your own research, and I will see you next time. Peace out.